From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Among the files we discovered yesterday at Musakusa's office is facts from the CIA dated May 2004, in which the CIA informs the Libyan government that they are in a position to capture and render Belhaj, who is now the head of the Tripoli Military Council, to Libya. And that operation actually took place.
Human Rights Watch has uncovered hundreds of letters in the Libyan Foreign Ministry, proving that Gaddafi's government directly aided extraordinary rendition carried out by the CIA and British intelligence. We'll speak with Peter Boockert of Human Rights Watch. He's in Tripoli. And with British attorney Gareth Peirce in London. She's represented a number of Guantanamo prisoners, as well as now Julian Assange. On this lead-up to the 10th anniversary of 9/11, she talks about torture and the death of justice. Then, overruling EPA scientists, the Obama administration tells the EPA to withdraw a plan to limit smog pollution that was projected to prevent 2,200 heart attacks and 23,000 asthma attacks annually. The Natural Resources Defense Council calls the decision the most outrageous environmental offense of the Obama administration. We'll host a debate. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Leaders within Libya's rebel movement believe Muammar Gaddafi has fled the encircled town of Bani Walid in a southbound military convoy making its way towards the borders of Niger and Chad. An official with the rebels' National Transitional Council says Gaddafi was believed to be in a southern town near Libya's border with Niger roughly 3 days ago. On a visit to the rebel-controlled capital of Tripoli, UN envoy Ian Martin praised the rebels' advances over Gaddafi.
I want to begin by repeating the congratulations that I expressed on my arrival in Tripoli to the Libyan people on the extraordinary transformation that they have achieved in this country. And I do so all the more because even in the very short time I've been in Tripoli, one can see the progress that is being made in bringing Tripoli back towards a more normal condition.
Activists in Syria say government forces have killed at least 7 people in the central city of Homs. According to witnesses, residents sought shelter in homes and offices as armored vehicles opened fire on anything that moved. The violence comes one day after some 2,000 Homs residents took to the streets in a defiant protest against President Bashar al-Assad. In other news from Syria, the International Committee of the Red Cross has confirmed it's been granted access to visit prisoners at the main prison in the capital of Damascus. The president of the Red Cross, Jacob Kellenberger, announced the news.
We have now started in a large prison in Damascus, and it will take a lot of time, and they will have to visit section after section as they proceed. So I think I think it does not make much sense that I give you now intermediate numbers. In fact, if I understand well, in this prison as a whole, there are 6,000 persons.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta is reportedly backing a proposal to leave between 3,000 to 4,000 U.S. troops in Iraq beyond the deadline for a full withdrawal at the end of the year. According to the New York Times, Panetta's plan would see U.S. forces remaining in Iraq to train Iraqi troops. The top U.S. commander in Iraq, General Lloyd Austin, has called for leaving behind as many as 18,000 soldiers. President Obama has repeatedly vowed to withdraw all U.S. troops. The U.S., though, will still maintain a massive presence in Iraq through the CIA and private contractors working under the State Department. In other Iraq news, 9 people were killed Tuesday when militants attacked a bus in Anbar province. 8 soldiers and their bus driver died in the attack. The U.S.-led NATO occupation force in Afghanistan has stopped sending prisoners to a number of Afghan jails following revelations of widespread torture and abuse. The transfers were halted after a UN report uncovered human rights violations at 9 Afghan prisons. In other Afghan news, victims of U.S. attacks throughout the decade-long war are speaking out about their experiences ahead of this week's 10-year anniversary of 9/11. A Jalalabad resident described a deadly raid on his family's home last year.
My father and my brother were sleeping inside the home with their children when suddenly the U.S. soldiers climbed on the roof and then entered the home and shot my father. I imagined that they had a fight with him when I heard the gunfire, or I thought that robbers had entered the house. Then I heard the children shouting that robbers had come. My older brother woke up and saw that the U.S. soldier killed my father, so he grabbed my father's body. Then the Americans opened fire on him and killed him.
Meanwhile, the former head of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, General David Petraeus, has begun his new stint as head of the CIA. Petraeus was sworn in at a ceremony Tuesday.
Thanks in advance to the tremendous men and women at the Central Intelligence Agency. That is a great organization with great people and a great mission, and I am very excited to have the opportunity to join them and indeed to be their director.
Republican presidential candidates are meeting in California tonight for a key debate in their primary race. It's the first debate to include Texas Governor Rick Perry, who's emerged as a front-runner since entering the contest last month. On Tuesday, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney unveiled an economic action plan centered around easing taxes and regulations for corporations.
The first one is going to direct the Secretary of Health and Human Services to grant a waiver from Obamacare to all 50 states so we can stop that in its tracks. The second one is going to put all of President Obama's regulations on hold till we see if they cut jobs, and if they do, we'll get rid of them. The third one is going to open up production of energy across this country and get jobs as we do so and get Americans back to work.
Romney is second in the polls to Perry. Bachmann is trailing. At least 25 people have been killed in a pair of suicide attacks in a government building in the Pakistani city of Quetta. The Pakistani Taliban has claimed responsibility, calling the bombings revenge for the earlier arrests of al-Qaeda operatives. Speaking to Reuters, a Pakistani military spokesperson said the arrests were carried out with heavy CIA cooperation.
When we found out that they are there in the suburbs of Quetta, then we conducted this raid, and there was a close coordination with the external intelligence agency, the CIA, and it was a very successful operation, like in the past that we have been conducting very successful operations with coordination of each other.
In India, at least 11 people have been killed and 45 and injured in a bombing outside the High Court in the capital of New Delhi. The outlawed HUJI group has apparently claimed responsibility for the attack. Two former executives at Rupert Murdoch's News Corp have contradicted Murdoch's son James Murdoch's assertions about how much he knew about the phone hacking that's engulfed the News Corp media empire. Appearing before a British parliamentary committee, former News Corp executive Tom Crone said the younger Murdoch approved a settlement after being told the phone hacking extended far beyond a single rogue journalist at the Murdoch's News of the World.
Listen, it was the reason that we had to settle the case, and in order to settle the case, we had to explain the case to Mr. Murdoch and get his authority to settle. So certainly it would certainly have been discussed.
Another News Corp executive, Colin Meyer, has also testified that James Murdoch was told the phone hacking was extensive. James Murdoch continues to insist he was unaware of the scale of the hacking. He's expected to be recalled to testify before the British Parliament. 5 people were killed Tuesday when a gunman opened fire at a restaurant in Carson City, Nevada, before taking his own life. 3 of the dead were uniformed members of the National Guard. Another 4 people were wounded. Nevada Sheriff Ken Furlong announced the attack.
2 were established dead at the scene. There has been a 3rd death during surgery. That reduces our victims that are patients down to 6 at this point in time. The deceased persons, at least 2 of the 3, appear to be military folks. And so we are working very closely with the Attorney General's Office, Department of Public Safety, the FBI, and the National Guard to work out those details.
Here in New York, a city council member is accusing police of racial bias after being detained at the Brooklyn West Indian Day Parade earlier this week. Jumaane Williams and a council staffer were handcuffed after walking on what police called a restricted area. The police have claimed they moved in after an officer was struck in the face, but neither Williams nor the staffer were accused. On Tuesday, Williams said he was targeted because of his ethnicity.
We do have to acknowledge that if I did not look the way I look, young, black, with locks and earrings, with another young black male, if we were elected officials of a different persuasion, we are sure that things would have been handled differently.
New York City Council member Jumaane Williams speaking in front of City Hall in New York. The family of a black man killed in Jackson, Mississippi in June has filed a lawsuit against a group of white teens linked to his murder. The teens allegedly beat James Craig Anderson, a 49-year-old black auto plant worker, while yelling "white power" and other racial epithets. Surveillance footage then shows one of the teens' truck driving over Anderson, killing him instantly. The Anderson family lawsuit targets the two teens already charged in the case and 5 others who've not been charged. Anderson was also a gay man with a same-sex partner, but it's unclear if his sexual orientation factored into the deadly attack. And Georgia has scheduled an execution date for death row prisoner Troy Davis, whose case has been taken up by death penalty opponents across the globe. Davis was convicted for the 1989 killing of an off-duty white police officer. Since then, 7 of the 9 non-police witnesses have recanted their testimony, and there's no physical evidence tying him to the crime scene. A judge has signed an order for Davis's execution sometime between September 21st and September 28th. It's the 4th time in as many years that Davis has been scheduled for execution. The Supreme Court turned down an appeal from Davis in March. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman, joined by Democracy Now! Producer Nermeen Sheikh, who'll be co-hosting with me today. Welcome, Nermeen.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.